Welcome to OAC Vancouver's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We believe that Jesus is needed and relevant for people in Vancouver today. The message of God's love and promise of wholeness was destined to be experienced within a faith community that worships, studies scripture, and prays together. We warmly welcome you to journey with us towards greater connection, purpose, and peace. We'll be sharing our recorded services and conversations with health and wellness experts. Enjoy.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy Sabbath when it comes. So could I go ahead and share my story? Yes. All right. So I was born legally blind. And legally blind simply means they will not give me a driver's license. That never stopped me from driving. I said that at a church. The pastor snatched the mic. He's like, please tell us the street and the time you'll be driving. Pastor Rhoda, I am so grateful that you invited me into your space, into your living room, to share the love that I have received from Christ. So back to my blind stories, right? So on the West Coast, we're in Victoria, and my wife, Elizabeth, decides to take me whale watching. Don't ask me why, but she decided to take me whale watching. And the guy on the little cruise ship, or what do you call it, tour boat, he's like, well, anyone, if you don't see a whale today, you're going to get half of your money back. I'm like, that's me, baby. That's me right there. Half of my money back. So I want to share, like Pastor Rhoda said, I'll be talking about a new story that healed my hurting heart. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to get a little deep, but the pastor said the pastor told me we're going to have a jam session after. Now, Pastor Rhoda, when you said jam session, I felt a little misled because the only thing that started running through my mind was drop it like it's hot, pop it like it's hot. I started thinking about all those hip hop songs, but I knew she meant a rap session. I had to take it in context, right? So I'm originally from the island of Trinidad. I was so happy to see another island man in Alston, and some South Americans in Raf and Raquel. So I'm from Trinidad, and usually people hear my accent, and you know where they think I'm from? Anybody want to guess? In North America? Think I'm from? They hear my accent, you know where they think I'm from? They say you're from Jamaica, man! I said, no, I'm not from Jamaica, I'm from Trinidad. And then they'd be like, what part of Jamaica is that? Well, it's the northern part of Jamaica. That's where Trinidad is, the northern part. All right, so I shared about being born blind. And during my teenage years, I would say was some of my most awful, ugliest period in my life. And it was some of my most ugliest period because throughout those years, I slept on the floor. On a little sleeping bag in the corner of a room, slept on the floor. My clothes was in a garbage bag. And it damaged me. It damaged me because I said to myself, who sleeps on floors but bums? And my clothes is in the garbage bag. It must mean I'm a nobody. And it's amazing. It damaged me, and it filled me with a lot of self-hate, right? Because saying to myself, I'm a nobody, I'm a bum, how far do you think that got me, right? I poisoned my heart. I poisoned my soul. And I started believing that I did not deserve happiness. So I said, I don't deserve happiness. People like me who are blind don't deserve happiness. If you have a physical challenge like me, I don't deserve happiness. So what did I do? I never got good jobs. I always settled for less than. I always hung out with the wrong crowd because, I'm a loser. What do you want me to do? I'm going to hang out with other losers. That's just what people who don't deserve do, right? And when it came to like dating, I remember one girl actually expressed interest in me. I'm like, something is wrong with her. If you can like broken me, you must be jacked up. That's how bad it was. And look, it was so bad. My soul was filled with so much hate, so much self-loathing that even when I was graduating with a doctorate, come on, you think that would cure something, right? That should have built my self-esteem. How many people, right, has doctorates in the world? Worse yet, how many minorities has doctorates? Oh, back up, scratch that. How many physically challenged minorities has doctorates? I'm a 1%er. But I still felt like total garbage. And my sister calls me and she's like, are you going to celebrate? Are you going to celebrate your doctoral graduation? You have, the GPS says you have arrived. She's like, you have arrived. You're going to celebrate? I'm like, for what? I'm not going to celebrate. Well, because again, I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve to be celebrated. Well, why would I do such a stupid thing? And she's like, no, I have 6 sisters. And so I grew up with some really tough women. So my sister is talking to me. And she's like, boy! I just switched to Trini for you guys. She's like, boy, do you want me to come through this phone and choke you? And as soon as they invent that technology, I would be dead. I just want you all to know that. So I'm like, why are you acting like that? What is there to celebrate? She's like, you know what? And she opened my eyes to something I never thought about. She said to me, she's like, I wonder if sleeping on the floor when you were growing up has still affected you and made you feel like you're undeserving of being celebrated. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And I never thought about that. I'm like, well, how? And it's amazing how self-hate and self-loathing works. You could accomplish so much, right? Like I said, a doctorate, a couple of masters, right? Have done so well. And yet still, I walked around life, not only, I would order several cakes, light a lot of candles, and throw several pity parties. Because I was garbage, I was trash, I was a nobody, I just don't deserve anything good. So she threatened me, and I decided to have this graduation to celebrate my accomplishment. Let me tell you guys something. It totally transformed my life. I have to give Otto a shout out for making sure my mic worked well. Robert told me to shout him out. But let me tell you all something. It totally transformed my life. I got up to speak, right? Well, first of all, I was kind of shocked. Over 100 people flew from different parts of the world to celebrate little old garbage me. I got up to speak, and this is the first time my church saw me publicly showing emotions like that. I got up to speak and I just started to weep. I couldn't speak. I just started to cry. And you know why I wept? I wept because for the first time in my life, I believed I deserved to be loved. For the first time in my life, I believed I deserved to be celebrated. And as I was preparing this talk, I was like, what happened in that moment that shifted your perspective? It didn't change that you were sleeping on the floor. It didn't change how you were scarred by sleeping on the floor. What happened? How come you open yourself up to love? To the wind of being celebrated that you finally deserve. You know what? You know what did it? I started seeing my life through the eyes of people who cared for me. I started looking at my life through the eyes of people who loved me. Because they look, if they could spend a couple of $100s, if they could take time off from their jobs just for this 3-hour program to say to me, Dex, you're worthy. And you know why I wept too? A bunch of my members, because I've been pastoring like about 3 years or so, and a bunch of my members got up and they started talking about how I impacted their life, how the ways they used to live before, that my love for them just totally radically reformed how they saw themselves. I'm like, wait, if I could help them to see themselves differently, I'm like, dude, what's up with that? What is wrong with you? And it just changed my life. And I want to say, that's part of where healing begins. When you can start seeing your life, seeing your worth through the eyes of people who think incredible things of you. So watch this. As I looked back at my teenage years, because, at some point in your life, you don't want to settle with being broken. At some point in your life, you don't want to be at peace with being an emotional wreck. And I wanted healing. That started a journey for me. I'm like, wow, they could love me like this. And Tess, it just really stirred my heart. If they could love me like this, then there must be something worth loving. And I need to tap into that for myself also. So I started going back to the darkness of those teenage years, sleeping on the floor, my clothes in a garbage bag. And it hit me, wait, dude, you're from the islands. We have all slept on the floor at one point or the other. Not only that, when you go camping, where do you sleep? On a queen size? Except you're renting one of those condos in the Okanagan, you know what I mean? No, you sleep on the floor. So if so many of my island peeps, they slept on the floor. If when we go camping, we go wilderness camping, we're on the floor. Why would sleeping on the floor be such a big deal for you? And it hit me like a ton of brick, man. The thing that damaged me, the thing that crushed my spirit and filled me with so much of self-hate and self-loathing was not sleeping on the floor. It was not having my clothes in a garbage bag. You know what it was? You know what it was? Raise your hands if you know. No, don't raise your hands. That won't help me. Sorry, y'all are messing me up. Don't do that. No. It was what I said about sleeping on the floor to myself. It's what I said to myself about having my clothes in a garbage bag. I said to myself, because I slept on the floor, I'm a bum. I could have said I'm camping. I said to myself, because my clothes is in the garbage bag, that I'm trash. So I had to do three things that helped me to create a new story. And all of us have talked hate into our own lives. The issue is not what happened to you, but is your interpretation of what happened to you. The issue is not the problem, but it's what you make of the problem. And listen, you're talking to a guy who's born blind, right? Who started to struggle and grope in darkness, and who started to make it in spite of all the odds stacked up against him. And then read this in a book, right? It's what I've lived. So it's not what you're going through, but it's what you make of it. Is what you tell yourself about what you're going through. So the three things I discovered about creating a new story that could heal our hurting hearts. The first thing is we have to distinguish between story and fact. Could you all tell me what I just said? Between? Story and fact. All right, help me one more time. Between? Story. Yeah, you all were not on cue, but I work with you tonight. Story and fact. Now let me ask you all, help me with this. I slept on the floor. Was that story or fact? That was a fact. Because I slept on the floor, I'm a bum. I'm a nobody. Story or fact? Story. I made that up. Bum didn't happen to me. I created that. As human beings, we are meaning makers. We create meaning for everything. Yeah? So my clothes was in the garbage bag. Story or fact? That's a fact. But dude, if your clothes is in the garbage bag, you must be trash. Story or fact? Story. It's a story. So you think about your life. You got divorced. What does that mean? Damaged? That's a story. Yeah? You were touched inappropriately. What does that mean? You're broken? You're soiled? That's story. That's not fact. And we remain broken when we aren't able to distinguish between story and fact. So you go to the movies, right? You go to the movies and somebody died. And you're crying. No, did they really die? No, they got rich. Somebody paid them. They didn't die. And what's kind of crazy, right? Here what's kind of crazy is before the movie began, and even at the end, there is something called credits, right? And you see there's a person called a producer, a director, And those people who play those various roles, what do you call them again? You call them actors. But you cried. You cried. Why? Because in that moment, you couldn't distinguish between story and fact. So from the time I was able to distinguish, okay, so that was story. I made that up. And as I said, we're always making up stuff. You can't silence the voice in your head from making up stuff. The people who try to silence that voice, they're on drugs. That's what they do to silence it. You can't silence that voice. It's just in all of us. And you're not crazy because there's a voice in your head telling you mess about what happened to you. It's just part of living on a broken planet. Right? Right? Good. Y'all are not making eye contact with me. I told Pastor Rhoda, in homiletics class at the seminary, the professors, man, they're like, make eye contact with your audience. I'm like, dude, you're crushing me right now. That is so unfair. Yeah, so we and what is sad is too often we spend so much of our lives repeating the stories that we create as if they are fact. And it keeps us broken, it keeps us hurting, it keeps us holding on to grudges and resentment and unforgiveness. It damaged our lives, man. Look. It's years it took me. Years. Where I stayed in this broken state. It damaged my life. So what did God do to begin to let the fresh wind of the Holy Spirit pour into my heart to bring healing? God began doing it. I opened my heart for healing when I started distinguishing between fact and story. The other thing I needed to do is I needed to rewrite the story. I need to rewrite the story. I have learned, for me personally, prayer is a perspective altering moment with God. I come to God with all these messed up, stinking thinking. And I'm like, God, this is how I feel about what happened. And God is like, let me holler at you for a hot minute. Let me teach you what it actually means. And that's what the Bible is. The Bible is God's opinions on life. And when you read the Bible, you're actually exchanging thoughts with God. You're giving God your crazy thinking, and you're taking his ideas, solutions, suggestions about how you ought to see life, how you ought to see yourself and your journey and your stumbles. So I had to reinterpret the story. And I had to reinterpret the story by first just identifying the facts. Now, here's the facts. Here's the facts. I grew up in a large family. There are like 8 of us. My father had like 15 children. His favorite Bible verse was, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the place. And I'm like, dude, have other people help multiply too. You know what I mean? Don't do it by yourself. I mean, we were at my father's funeral, right? Really nice guy. So people were like crying. And we heard a couple of ladies. They're like, Daddy, why did you leave us? What? Did she just say daddy? Not the best place to meet new siblings, right? Yeah, no, not the best place. So at a large family, right? There were 8 of us with my mom. And I was in a boarding school for blind kids. And when I came out, my dad had died, and a lot of my other siblings came to live with my mom, and there just wasn't any room. There were like 10 of us in one room. 10 of us in one room. They just had no room. They didn't put me on the floor because they were punishing me. I slept on the floor because they wanted me. A lot of parents didn't know what to do with blind kids. They didn't know. So they put them in the system. They put them in homes, in group homes. They didn't know what to do with them. My mom said, there's no way all my kids won't be together. And she worked 3 days a week, part-time, cleaning the bathrooms of the local ferry. But she's like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to keep all my kids together. Had no clue. What do you do with a physically challenged child? Had no clue. She did not care. So what I thought was an act of hate, was an act of vindictiveness, was actually supreme love. That's what new stories do for us. Yeah? And let me tell you another huge blessing that came from this. I think, Rafa, you were saying it this evening when we were talking, that I'm translating what you said. Not in Portuguese, but in English. I'm translating. That a pandemic is a terrible thing to waste. Don't let this COVID come and go without you experiencing some radical blessings from it. So another huge blessing is I got to grow up with my siblings. And my siblings, like I shared with you guys, they're tough. And they didn't cut me any slack. Never did. A lot of, I ran a non-profit for blind individuals. A national non-profit where it was like a phone program, and it was really, really amazing. We had a gym over the phone. We had health seminars over the phone. We taught computer classes over the telephone. I mean, it was such a blessing that Christian Record Service that used to be ran by the General Conference. They're like, we just love what you do. Could we just take it over? I'm like, let the Lord lead. But what I learned just working with a disenfranchised community is that a lot of the blind people I encountered, the visually challenged I encountered, they learned helplessness from their parents and their siblings. They taught them that they were impotent and they couldn't do much for themselves. Not my siblings. No, if I tried making excuses like I would break a few dishes and say I'm blind, I can't see to do it, they would slap me upside the head. They'd be like, if we drop money on the floor, you would see it. Wash those dishes, boy. Rough siblings, you know what I mean? But let me tell you something. It made a man out of me. It made an independent, thriving go-getter out of me. I remember a couple of years ago, I wanted to go to Japan. I was preaching on the Navy base. And one of my friends, she's like, look, Dex, I speak Japanese and I got lost in Japan. Do not go by yourself. I'm like, she don't even know who she's talking to. I had an attorney in my church. She did an internship in Japan. I'm like, girl, you teach me some Japanese. I said, the first thing I needed to teach me is I don't see well. She's like, watashi wa mianai desu. I'm like, got it. When I showed up in Narita, I'm like, watashi wa mianai desu. They're like, we got a taxi for you. We got a hotel for you. 7 days all over the country. Never a problem. Why? Now that happened because they taught me courage, because they never allowed me to make excuses for my sightlessness. The gift of sleeping on the floor and having my clothes in a trash bag. My clothes was in a trash bag because there simply wasn't any closet space. So here, let me come full circle for you. And then we can do our jam session, right? I said earlier that the transformational moment came when I started seeing my life through the eyes of those who thought I was somebody special. My brother-in-law, and let me tell you all, I have the best in-laws ever. I know they're the best because we do a lot of vacations together. That's how you know you're tight with your in-laws. Right, Christine? And Robert? Right. So I was doing my father-in-law's funeral about 4 years ago. And Robert spoke before I did. I mean, he really just messed things up. His 5 minutes was so powerful. I'm like, no pressure, right? No pressure. But he got up and he shared something, Robert, and I'll never forget it because it moved me deeply. He said, look, he was talking to Dad. And Dad said to me, Robert, I love you. And Robert is like thinking, well, how could you love me? I'm not married. I haven't given you grandkids. I don't have a master's. I don't have this big set of education. How could you say you love me? And he goes on, right? He goes on with a list. I don't have a big 6-figure paying job. I don't drive a fancy car. How could you say you love me? What have I done to deserve your unconditional love? And Theo says to him, I love you because you're my son. I love you because you're my son. I read in 1 John 3 and verse 1, it says, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we are called sons and daughters of God. He loves us because we are his sons and daughters. Friends, family, if God thinks so highly of us, then the least we can do is think the same way about ourselves. If he could invest like he did, he came a long way to show us that his love is for real, then why don't we do that? Because I've had to do that every day to keep healing my broken heart. And what I should have entitled my talk is the new story that continues to heal my broken heart. I have to remind myself every day when I feel broken, when I feel lost, when I feel hopeless, when I feel like I don't belong, when I feel like I'm undeserving. I have to keep reminding myself I am incredibly loved. I'm near and dear to his heart. And I want to see myself like he sees me.
Thank you for listening to OAC Vancouver's podcast. Learn more at oacvancouver.ca. If you're in Vancouver, join us for worship Saturdays at 11 a.m. at 5350 Bailey Street. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. God bless you and have a wonderful day.